Welcome to the Incomplete People, Update 2. Apparently, lots of you have had experiences with these horrible creatures. Since my last update, dozens of subscribers have submitted stories and pleas for help. In this video, we will look at just a few. I warn you, some of these stories are quite disturbing. The Skin Stalker, from the Ghastly Spectre. When I first heard about this, I thought it was a joke. Boy, did that change real quick. I soon started seeing an empty sack of flesh. It had no bones, organs, or anything underneath its skin. It was as if someone had skinned a 20-something-year-old and said skin came alive. The only reason I could tell was because of its deflated appearance. At first, I thought it was my imagination. When I started seeing it more and more, I knew it was real. Please, someone help. I See Incomplete People by Collins. I was out for a walk when I saw it. It was a man with no arms or legs, and it moved like a snake, just not as fast, but it still scared me. The Outline Man by CD. I'm so glad I have confirmation I'm not going insane. Since I was a teenager, I've been seeing what looks like an outline of a man. You know how cookie cutters are shaped, where it's just the outline with no features? He looks like that, but an actual person. I don't know what he's waiting for, but I'm glad he hasn't acted yet. How do I get rid of him permanently? The Seaside Torso by Ekom Sakad. Oh, thank God. I thought I was alone. I believe I encountered one of these things you mentioned in your video. A week ago, I returned to my home island for a summer break, and as is tradition, I went to the beach with my family. Most of the day went just fine, but as we were packing up to leave around the afternoon, I saw it. Right by the waves, receding back into the sea, a human torso. I had to do a double take to make sure I was seeing right. No cuts, no blood, no nothing. It looked like it was born that way. It just lay there wet and covered in sand, unmoving. I honestly thought I was just tired and seeing things. I did watch a video based on such a thing recently, but I kept seeing it. I almost stepped on it at the grocery store. I saw it while out on a date. She thought something was wrong with me and ditched me a few moments later. I see it around my apartment building sometimes, moving like a worm, pulling its bottom half forward and bending its spine just enough to later flop forward a bit more. I didn't have my phone with me at the beach, but I took a picture of it yesterday right next to my car. And I somehow locked this thing up somewhere. No one else sees it. No one else hears its movement. I can still hear the faint sound of flesh smacking on pavement. What do I do? The Feet by Sam. Over the years of watching this channel, these videos have never once hit so close to home, unlike the recent one. My incomplete person has only feet, no legs, no arms, nothing. I'm glad I found a way through your videos to get rid of it. It's going to be real difficult too to me not having a car. Like everyone else, it follows me everywhere. When I was visiting a nuclear power plant, it was there. When I was swimming in my old family pool, it was there. Something I noticed that was different. I'm not sure anyone else has seen. Sometimes the feet hang upside down, like it's on a bed or something, like a child trying to see the world upside down or something. It's not like the feet are covered in blood. I just see a little bit of bone sometimes. My experience with 3 Incomplete People from Classic Customs. I've been watching your recent videos on the Incomplete People, but it wasn't until after the second video that I saw one myself. In fact, I've seen 3. Mr. Hole in Head, Inside Out Man, and Just Ahead. Mr. Holenhead was the first one I started seeing, although all three of them showed up around the same time. I was woken up by him knocking at my window one night. I opened my blinds and nearly defecated myself. It didn't help when he showed me the literal hole in his head. His head had a hole in it just big enough for a golf ball to fit through, going through his skull and even into his brain a bit. Oddly, there was no blood or obvious signs of damage, except for the hole in his head. I didn't bother taking any pictures of him or telling anyone, since I was certain no one could see him but me. Seeing as I wasn't the violent type, I started to prepare for my inevitable death, while also trying to act normal around my family and not raise any eyebrows. That was made harder when a few days later I saw Inside Out Man. Well, I thought he was inside out at first. It took me a bit to realize that he was just a collection of internal organs that just so happened to be inside out. He dragged himself across the ground wherever I went. Just a head showed up not long after. He was just a head. No neck, not even a spine. Just a full-on head. I was certain my life was over by that point. That night, I went to bed hoping that my death would be a quick one. I heard each of the incomplete people enter my room like ghosts, phasing through my door. What happened next, however, was quite unexpected. The three terrifying entities looked at each other, and then they started to attack each other. Inside Out Man raised up a knife from out of nowhere and began cutting into Mr. Hole-in-One. Mr. Hole-in-One screamed. I saw Inside Out Man hollow out Mr. Hole-in-One and commission his body for itself. Then this new, slightly more complete, incomplete person turned to Just a Head. He used the same knife to cut off the top of Just a Head's, head. Then the entity was complete. I watched it disappear along with whatever remained of the other two incomplete people. Since then, I haven't seen any more incomplete people, but I wouldn't be surprised if more showed up.
The Man Without a Brain by Mai.
Hey, I recently watched your video on incomplete people. I'm 26 and I work at the mental asylum as a psychiatric nurse. So yes, I do work with many rather psychotic people. Many have tried to attack me. Many wail and screech in the dead of night. Many have committed heinous crimes that landed them at the lowest level of humanity. One day I was consulting a patient diagnosed with schizophrenia, a condition that caused them to have delusions or hallucinations, sometimes voices in their own head that others don't hear. When we began, I noticed he was showing signs of near insanity. And he started telling me that he was seeing a person who's missing all their limbs, legs and arms, he described it. In a shaking, crazed voice, how it looked like a bloody, mangled tree trunk with only a head. I finished our session, though as I was sorting through my papers, I saw someone standing at my office door, just staring. He seemed to have a crazed look in his eyes from afar. I could tell he wasn't blinking, his chest wasn't moving, his pupils were still. He was as pale as a ghost. Everything was intact though. He looked normal other than this rather odd stare. "Sir, please wait outside," I said. I figured this was just someone else's patient, but somehow escaped. Yet it still didn't move, it didn't blink. I slowly approached. I took a small flashlight and pointed straight into its eyes. Its pupils didn't contract. His brain wasn't functioning properly. So then I tried to call a coworker. Though they claimed they didn't see anything, no matter how close we got. They even suggested I had developed schizophrenia after all these years of working. They escorted me out of my office. I swore it turned around and stared at me. My boss gave me a pass to head home early. When I got home, I locked my door, though when I brushed the curtain aside, it was out there, staring directly at me. I passed out right after. I woke up at like 4:45 a.m., still on the ground, a bit woozy. I immediately turned on all the lights, rushing back to my room. I finally made it onto my computer when I found your follow-up stories. I watched through the full thing. I then checked my camera that was propped against my door. Turning back to the time I got home, there was nothing, not even after I passed out. Had I encountered an incomplete person?
Have you seen an incomplete person? Then email me at doyouseeincompletepeople@gmail.com. The scariest ones might make it into a future update. Remember, every email needs to grant me permission to use it and how you would like to be credited.